every time my wife and I are watching TV, we're scrolling down, and I'm like, there, Ghostbusters. Let's watch that. And she's like, there are movies made after 2000.
What?
That is a quote from my wife, and I'm like, yeah, but no good ones.
Right. Oh, man, I play on heart.
Thank God you came on the show. Thank you.
And I was like, you got to listen to this podcast. And when I called Chad, I'm like, this was made for me, because everything you guys talk about just brings me to a place that just brings up good memories, whether it's music you're talking about or movies or whatever. So I was just really happy that you guys invited me to be on this podcast.
Oh, man.
I love it. Thanks, man. You're hired.
Less than 2,000.
The podcast. This is a man who knows the 80s, the 90s, and how to be dope.
And he's got a good topic. It's expanding our range here. But why don't we talk about how we should introduce our guest today?
No, that's true. We've been talking long enough, and nobody actually knows who we're talking about. How do we introduce you?
My name's Colby Coash.
That's just it.
That's it.
All right, everyone. This
title?
is thanks, Colby Coash.
Rumor
Welcome.
has it you're a senator.
I used to be.
Mm-hmm. But you keep that title forever, so we could call you senator. Is that right?
Senator Coash, or
I earned that title. I worked really hard for it, so I don't mind people calling me that. But it's not part of my life anymore. I still get to stay engaged with it and pay attention to it, work in it from time to time. Now I'm actually getting paid, so I appreciate that. And,
that's always nice.
But when I'm not doing that, I like to work with Chad. And
so in addition to that, you've also worked with me on like 4 or 5 different movie projects.
Yep. Every time I turn up, if Chad Bishoff is on the call sheet, I know it's going to be a quality project. So,
well, that's a lie. But I do want to say, though, what's great about this is somehow I feel the same way. I'm like, oh, here we go. We're shooting again. Here comes Senator Coash on the movie. You were in everything that comes to town, and I find that awesome. And it's always fun working with you. It's always fun seeing you.
Tell us what the topic is today. I'm excited to branch out from just movies and TV and music and video games is what we've pretty much done so far. So we're expanding our horizons today.
So as I was listening to your podcast, I was running down, and all these memories come by, and I sent a message to Chad, and I said, what you really ought to talk, one of the things you could talk about is toys. Like when I think about my childhood in the 80s as a kid, a lot of my memories are tied to what I was playing with, how I was playing with them, how they tied into the movies. And that was a lot of what I thought about. When you guys are talking about movies, I'm thinking about the toys that I was playing with as it relates to those movies. And so that's what I thought about. I was a Star Wars. That was my jam.
Yeah, who wasn't?
Right? My wife. Go figure.
Back in the late 70s and 80s, though, every kid was into Star Wars.
It was my thing. And so collecting them, but I actually played with them. Mm-hmm. Right? I was not, and wouldn't consider myself a toy collector by any means. I played with them. And luckily enough, at least with Star Wars, I kept them. Or at the time, my parents kept them. And then, when you're like, I don't know, for me, it was like, I was like 28 and I had bought my first house. I was married. And here comes my dad with a pickup. Yeah. And he said, here, you got your own house. You keep this crap.
Get this crap out of my basement or attic.
And it was a couple of big boxes of action figures and toys. And they were pretty much just like I left them as a not 12, probably 9, grade school kid, like dumped him in there.
No, it's okay if you want to go at 12.
Yeah, I was junior high still playing.
Was I still playing with
action figures?
You're playing with dolls at like 14,
Right.
They're not dolls, Mom. They're action figures.
Exactly.
That was a big thing in the 70s. Like, boys didn't want to have dolls. Like,
right.
Back in the day, I've seen pictures of like old G.I. Joe. They did not have the kung fu grip and like the opposable arms, and they were big. And that was just it. Like, they needed something to appeal to boys, and so it became like smaller and opposable rather than like a stuffed animal. I mean, they almost kind of looked like big stuffed dolls back in the day.
They did, and I was the whole gamut. I mean, I had the big ones, the small ones, but Star Wars was kind of my thing. But I did dabble in G.I. Joe.
Oh yeah,
and I experimented a little bit with He-Man.
Nice. See, I was a He-Man guy. He-Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of course.
Yep.
Well, he the Masters of the Universe the He-Man collection is like, those are some of my earliest memories are playing with those toys and watching that cartoon. I mean, this is early 80s kid heaven with, you know, does anybody remember what the name of the animal was? The tiger?
Oh, cat, something cat.
Okay. Well,
Battle Cat.
Battle Cat.
There it is. There it is. We knew we'd get there.
I knew it.
And He-Man was just like, when you're a little boy, that's exactly what you want to be. Like, we grew up with Hulk Hogan and stuff, so it's just these ripped, roided monsters. And He-Man was like, well, first of all, his name was Adam. And so, like, I totally thought, you know, I'm He-Man. I am the master of the universe.
I can picture that.
And
I was drawn to the more obscure He-Man characters, like Skunkor.
Oh my God.
He was like this skunk guy, and his power was like he would spray like a really bad smelling thing.
Amazing.
But I was always, I mean,
I want that power. Oh wait, I might already have that power.
I love those toys, and they kind of take me back. And so it's been kind of cool now that I'm a dad, got an 11-year-old. He started to watch the movies. I'm like, you want to see Jabba the Hutt? Look at this. And so he kind of sees them in a different way, but it's been really cool. And I've just, I don't seek out the toys, but it's kind of got a resurgence right now.
No, that's great. And that's one of the things we always like talking about in the show, because it's not just about, you know, the fun, and it's not just about celebrating the stuff that we love or picking at the things we hated. There's a real sentiment to the stuff you grow up with. I really think that when you're growing up and you're a kid into your early 20s, that's what like cements everything. And so you talk about the toys. A lot of people, especially men, I think, are kind of like, nobody wants to get together and talk about toys. What toys did you play with? And when you hit us up, I'm like, these are action figures that defined us as a generation, and they were incredible. And so it's fun. It brings back so many memories and so many things to talk about. And so it's great.
I played with them.
Yeah.
You know, and I look at the way my 11-year-old plays now. He doesn't play in the same way I played. I mean, everything that he does is very electronic, very, you know, sure. He has like apps and things like that. And so it was much more hands-on. I mean, back in the mid-'80s, you grabbed something and you made it.
Sure.
And you collected them and you traded with your friends. And it was a lot of fun. So here's my question for you guys. When you played with these toys, did you reenact things that you saw, or did you more like create your own world within the toys?
For me,
I have
it was
a
the
very
latter.
Specific opinion on how toys should be played with. At least I did.
It depends on the toy, first of all. Like, if it was Ghostbusters figurines, I would reenact stuff that I saw in the movie or the cartoon, because the cartoon was great.
Cartoon was awesome.
But when it came to like He-Man, and especially like the little green men, the little green military guys, like that was all in my head. I mean, it was you're creating scenarios and you're just imagining the backstory between the characters and the fight, or it's, you know, almost always fighting, and so yeah, I just kind of created a universe in my head, probably based off things I had seen on the He-Man show, but just, and what really strikes me before Chad answers that is that the power of the child's imagination. Like, seriously, if we were sitting here with 2 action figures right now and no one was around, there's no way we'd be sitting here for half an hour developing like this backstory and this awesome action scene and whatever our imaginations do. That's stuff that like fades away as you get older. Like, the world beats you down, reality sets in, and you gotta come up with money, and you gotta, you know, go to school, go to work, and it beats that imagination out of you. But it just really shocks me when you really sit down and think about it, how vivid child's imaginations are.
No, absolutely. But that brings me, you know, you talk about apps. Are kids using their imagination today like they used to? I mean, how? Because when we had this stuff, we physically could touch it, we could build it, we could play with it, we could set it up, and I'll tell you what I did with mine next. But seriously, like what are they doing? How are they expressing themselves?
Well, it's all internal, I think, for kids now, right? Like, they're creating it in their mind and they're putting it on a screen. Whereas we created it in our mind and we put it on our bedroom floor, you know, and that's kind of what I did. What did you do?
I'm really glad you said that, Because I found the notion of playing with action figures, I had a lot of them. I mean, like I said, I had an army of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all kinds of stuff. The act of physically playing with them, I couldn't do. I was the kid who took, and I had a whole mantle, like a whole shelf by my window, and I would stage elaborate scenes from start to finish as if I was painting a frame of a movie that I want to make. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as my dad brought home our first camera when we were like 89 or 90, I started doing stop animation where I would make the action figures come alive and attack each other. That was the only way I felt I knew how to play with toys, with action figures.
That's awesome.
Now, did you recreate like an episode, or did you create your own?
All in my head.
So
all original.
New stories.
Yeah, all new stories, all new everything. I mean, rudimentary. I don't want people to think that I was doing something like super genius and amazing. Exactly. I was making a move and just like attack each other. And I mean, I learned how to do the stop animation on the camera.
Stop motion animation.
Yeah.
By just letting it play for half a second, turning it off, turning it on, turning it off. Like old school filmmaking, like King Kong or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, please tell me you still have some of those videos. Please tell me we can put something on social for this.
I do.
Oh, yes!
All of them.
All of them. You have the VHS
I have
cassettes?
the VHS, and not only do I have the VHS tapes, I've actually recently converted all of said VHS tapes to digital files ready to upload.
Well, look out.
And this wasn't planned. I don't want people are going to hear that and go, yeah, okay, he asked the question, but he already knew the answer. No, I never told you this.
No, you never told me that.
I literally just did this like maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Wow.
That's amazing. I cannot wait to see that.
That's going to be our most popular social media ever, I think. Like, that's going to be awesome.
It sounds way cooler talking about it than what it'll look like.
What kind of toys are we talking here? What was the brand? Or
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
TNMT. You had them all, right?
I had them all.
That's awesome.
A little earlier than that with G.I. Joe, the thing that I loved about later the Turtles and before that G.I. Joe was the fact that they all had their own story behind them.
Sure.
Like that was, and like you always gravitate toward. You ask a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle kid, who is your favorite turtle? They will say
Donatello.
They always have one, right? And why you chose that one out of the other 4?
You know what? Leonardo was just sort of had a thumb up his butt.
He was the leader.
Raphael was too angry for me.
Yeah, he was the outsider.
Donatello had that really cool staff and just, you could hit people from farther away. I mean,
wasn't Michelangelo kind of the
party
class
dude.
clown?
Yeah, he was the class clown.
Yeah, and that's who I was.
I was going to say that's Adam.
That was definitely right. Well, I find it funny that you like Donatello the most because I always view Donatello as like the Egon of the group. Like at least on the cartoon, he was always like fixing the car, and he was like in the new movies, he's like a nerd. I think he's got glasses and stuff. By the way, I did watch one of those, and it was just, oh my God, I can't believe it. What a disappointment. Megan Fox was not April O'Neil. Like, where was the red hair? She wore a yellow jacket, but where's the full-on yellow jumpsuit?
Just because you have the yellow jacket doesn't mean that you become... No, where's the red hair? Where's everything else?
Will Arnett wasn't even good in it. But let me ask you a question about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. As an older person, just, 5-10 years older than us or whatever, you outgrew stuff that we were still into.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you, when I got into high school and stuff, I thought Power Rangers were the dumbest there were. Power Rangers, Barney, all of that. Pokemon, I never got into it because we were like too old for it. Dragon Ball Z, never got into it. So
yeah, but those were really action figures. I mean, like already the stuff that you're coming, it was stupid as
Power Rangers were action figures, weren't they?
Oh, they were.
Fine, but Pokemon and all
cards.
the other stuff, well, that's not an action figure.
Like Pokemon was kind of the transition, right? Mm-hmm. Between what we all remember playing with, and then all of a sudden became this different, realm where it became cards, and now it's all digital. But nothing's new. This is what I've noticed, right? As like now a parent of a kid who's playing with toys. Like, of course, he's into superheroes. He loves all the Marvel,
sure.
and he's very gravitated towards the action.
I can get behind that
of all those things. And so now I'm sitting there going, and I'm looking at Daredevil, right? And I was, for some reason I was looking at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's a connection. Did you know that?
No,
is there? I didn't know.
There is a who was the Splinter, right, is the same as the mentor in Daredevil, and so who are the bad guys? The hand,
the
Foot Clan, right?
The Foot Clan. I like the Hand Clan.
It was the Foot, right?
It was the Foot. Yeah, it was the soldiers.
Who's the bad guys in Daredevil?
Yep.
The Hand.
No way.
See, I don't know
There
anything
is a
about
connection.
Daredevil because wasn't that with Ben Affleck?
Well, yeah. So that's the bad version.
I can't do
the new Marvel or the Netflix series Daredevil. If you go look into the background of that, there is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ripped off Daredevil. Right? So Daredevil,
I vaguely remember this.
Daredevil's mentor is like this mystic, uses a staff that became Splinter.
Okay.
Like coming out of the sewer with all that kind of thing. It was all tied to. There's this big connection. So it's all coming around.
So nothing's original. Everything's recycled and just borrowed.
Absolutely.
But back to the question about like when you were in high school and Turtles were a little later. They were like late 80s, early 90s.
Buy Turtles.
Did you think it was
my jam.
stupid? Like were you like these kids and their Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? It's so stupid. Like how I felt about.
I kind of
Power
remember.
Rangers.
I remember seeing them. I was like, well, that's clever. I mean.
That says it all.
I liked
That's
it.
clever.
I was like if I remember maybe thinking, if I was 5 years younger, I'd be into this. I knew that the 9-year-old Colby would have liked it.
Sure. Okay, well that's cool.
Makes sense.
That's a good self-awareness. You weren't just hating like Adam was.
Well, what about how about Ghostbusters? Because Ghostbusters the movie came out in '84.
Yeah, that's my thing. Ghostbusters is that's my go-to 80s.
Absolutely.
Like I can't not watch it. If it's on, I watch it.
You're right.
Every time.
And
you can't skip past it.
Every single person in this room would
do
agree that that's just all-time classic, top 5 comedies of all time, I'm sure. One of those you cannot stop. So when the action figures came out a little later, because it got really commercialized with all the different kinds of toys, action figures included. Now, you would have been a little old for those
been in high
as well.
School. I don't remember that.
Yeah,
I don't remember the action figures comics.
Oh, they were
great. I don't either.
Oh man, they were great. I know Chad and I played Ghostbusters probably with my toys.
Yeah, it was definitely your toys.
But just the scenarios you could put everybody. We knew that movie beat by beat. Mm-hmm. You could recreate the whole dang thing with the action figures, and it was just so much fun. And you had those Slimer guy, and you could do different things that they sold. They sold slime. If anybody remembers that, in little cans.
That I remember.
You could ruin your toys by putting slime all over. But yeah, I was wondering, because you loved the movie, you were in the right age for the movie in '84. But by 88, when the action figures are coming out, '89.
Yeah, I wasn't into that. But talking about toys though, there's action figures. But I also gravitated towards, and I don't know what the term for this is, but I wanted to reenact and be the Ghostbuster. Yeah. Or be He-Man.
Oh, yeah.
So my thing was if I remember vividly getting the He-Man kit, which was a shield
costume.
Well, it wasn't the full thing. It was just a shield and a sword. And then I could be He-Man.
That's awesome.
And then they didn't really have that for G.I. Joe. They really didn't have that for Star Wars. But when Ghostbusters came out, they didn't really have that either. So I'm out there, I'm building.
Oh, no.
You're gonna stop.
I don't remember that.
I finished the thought, but
I'm sorry to cut you off. I had the full-on proton
pack and the trap and all of that stuff.
I had
that really
the
lit up and made
whole
the
thing.
sound and the little PKE meter and the ghost detector.
So here's the deal. You guys grew up
in the right time. We grew up
but you grew
early
up in
80s.
But you grew up in a community where you could go to a place to get that stuff.
Yeah, Toys R Us.
I
KB
grew up
Toys.
in a small town where I was 4 hours away from any Toys R Us. So we built them. I built my own proton packs. Took my own backpacks.
Okay, now that's dope.
You built a hoverboard. I remember you built a hoverboard.
I did build a hoverboard.
So I kind of I went back and forth between playing with the action figures, but wanting to be them.
Yeah.
So the play that I was doing kind of moved from the micro world of the small action figures to, okay, now I'm going to be He-Man and you're going to be Man-at-Arms, and we're going to reenact this with, the neighborhood kids. And
instead of playing the God view of overlooking everything and pulling the strings, you were first person star of your own story.
And I did both, like with vigor. Like I was all in. Like
absolutely,
I wanted. It was really disappointing to me. I just remember the He-Man like having the shield and the sword, but I didn't have like the
thing that goes over his
clothing.
chest and the cod piece. Let's face it.
Yes. Colby running around with a little sheet between his legs and the little strap across his chest.
It just wasn't enough.
And probably
your mother probably would have said that's not enough.
Yeah. And you should be happy there aren't photographs of that of you in a blue cod piece with a sword and a shield. I'm He-Man. I'm like, oh, that haircut.
I'm a senator.
I miss that. That's one of the things I really truly miss about culture today. And I do admit that it's more realistic and that there's, shades of gray and nobody's really good and there's anti-heroes and stuff. Like, I appreciate that. But I do also miss, and I think it'd be good for kids to have the pure black and white. To me, the greatest hero in the history of cinema is Luke Skywalker. I mean, he faced down the evil of his father no matter what. He wanted to find the good in his dad. He would not strike him down, even if it meant he was going to die. He had him on the ropes. He was about ready to do it, and he realized, oh my God, the Emperor's winning. And he redeems Space Hitler. To me, just the purity of a character who's pure good, we just don't seem to have that anymore. And I miss that, and I wish kids could enjoy that.
Maybe at the time, the people who were making those things felt like kids couldn't handle anything other than that. But I agree with you. The simpleness, the purity of it made all the difference to me as a kid, because it helped point my compass. It's like, do you want to be like He-Man? You want to be like Skeletor?
Right.
Yeah. I'll be the hero.
Yeah. But somebody, when you're playing though, somebody's got to be the bad guy. You can't have one without the other. And I was just as happy to get a bad guy, the Jabba the Hutt, because you've got to have somebody to battle. But I was kind of like you, Chad. Like, I was more about setting it up. I wasn't as creative to like create my own stories. I wanted to see how close I could get to what I had seen in the cartoon or in the movie. And then, my best friend in the world, we'd play together, and he'd bring his G.I. Joe to my Star Wars party and cross-pollinate.
Yeah.
And he was creative like that. Like, it didn't bother him to have, Duke fighting it out with Luke Skywalker.
Sure.
And you're over in the side going, that's not right. This is not accurate.
It didn't fit with me. And then, I grew up with sisters, and of course, Barbie doesn't play.
Yeah. You walk in the room and Barbie is playing with, Luke Skywalker, and you're like, no.
I've lost my mind over it. That's funny. It bothered me.
That's
funny. Like, I couldn't, even when I was a little kid, like, I would store my Star Wars toys separate from, even if it was just like half of the toy box. Like, this is where the Star Wars, like, they don't play together.
For me, it was kind of like, it just depends. There could be, the crossover was fun because it was like, see, even in those cartoons, sometimes there were like guest episodes. Like, suddenly, certain characters from another show would show up on your Saturday morning cartoon. You're like, wow, suddenly Optimus Prime is in G.I. Joe or something like that.
Handle it. We didn't talk about Transformers.
It's pretty cool.
By the way.
But Transformers and Voltron, they could play together. They were close enough.
No, they cannot.
They were close. You can't throw Ghostbusters in there, but maybe Ghostbusters and G.I. Joe could work together.
No.
He's firm on this.
He's twitching. He's firm. He's a middle-aged man, and he's still over here twitching.
Oh my God, this is everything that's wrong in the world.
I catch my son doing it. Like, he'll do that with his version of whatever it is. I'm like, you're having fun wrong.
Sometimes the issue is you don't have enough toys of the same kind. If you don't have enough Transformers to just have a Transformers party, you've got to combine them, because I didn't get every toy under the sun.
Well, that's having fun wrong.
Yes. What? Your parents clearly didn't love you enough.
Let's talk about Transformers, because they were talk about an amazing toy. I mean,
for sure.
They could be a vehicle or a robot, a sentient robot.
Yeah.
And they made the sound, and you had the good robots versus the bad robot, the Decepticons, and could those be the best toys from our generation? Period?
Absolutely, and it's coming back too. That's the other thing. Like I remember the toys, and having Optimus Prime was like, if you had that, that was kind of, I don't know for you guys, but that was like the Millennium Falcon. Like if
Yeah.
you were the kid on the block that had Optimus Prime or the Millennium Falcon, you had the best.
Yeah,
right.
God tier.
You know, but like, yeah, Transformers was fun. What do you say?
Well, because it's a badass concept in general.
Yeah.
And I love the morphing aspect.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't want to morph into something totally different? It's one thing to have superpowers. It's one thing to be, like take off your glasses and suddenly you can fly because you're Superman. But like morphing into something totally different, that's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, because it gave you that, just from a standpoint of doing something. You could... It's kind of like a puzzle. You could put it together and take it apart. You could. It was like a toy, like a car. Like a Hot Wheels car. Or
but
whatever.
it went from vehicles, and then they started getting real cute and saying, "Well, we're not just gonna make vehicles."
Mm-hmm.
Like, remember the dude that was a boombox?
That was I was just about to get that. And I had that, and it was an actual boombox.
It was, and then the tape came out, and it was like a little vulture.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome. I think a couple of those. First of all, there were such great characters on that. Megatron was an amazing villain.
He was a gun,
Scream.
right? Huh? Megatron was a gun.
He was a gun. He turned into a gun.
Yep. I had that.
He didn't have the best design. I didn't really care for his just all gray and the weird helmet head. But I mean, you had Skyscream. You had the guy that turned into the boombox, who was like the right hand man of Megatron. I can't remember his name, but he turned into the boombox, and he was like, you just liked him because he was so loyal. He was like, there's always that bad guy in movies that's like, you kind of respect a little bit because he's like the lackey of the main guy, but he's loyal to the cause, and he stands up for what he believes in. It's wrong, but you like respect him, and you kind of like want him to come over to the good guy's side or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah. There's a character like that in G.I. Joe too. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about where I think the majority of what we're talking about started, and it was Star Wars.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the chicken and the egg debate when it comes to what came first, the show or the toys with Transformers, I mean, Star Wars was developed with toys in mind. Certainly after New Hope. New Hope was probably kind of a standalone movie, but after that, it became pure marketing.
It was
Ewoks, for instance.
100%. It was 100% a standalone movie. It just became so popular. They were like, we can go anywhere we want with this.
Yeah, but they specifically started designing characters and stuff to sell toys.
Well, and geniuses for doing so.
This is bringing back so many memories. I remember the feeling of what it was like to play with these toys, and it just blows my mind, like the power of the imagination.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're inanimate objects, and Chad made these elaborate action scenes out of it. You became He-Man and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
We'd play through these things, and you have nothing but a couple pieces of plastic, and you could keep yourself entertained for hours. I don't think kids that grow up with cell phones and tablets as their primary form of entertainment have that same experience.
Well, only time will tell. But I mean, you think about Chad, playing with those toys and then setting them up had to be influential on your career.
Totally.
It had to put you on a path to do that.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, I couldn't draw to save my life. I mean, gun to my head, I'd be dead. But I would still draw. I would build these scenes out, and I mean, my mom would give me some yarn and tape, and all of a sudden I'm crafting something. And these are things that you just don't see today. You see parents handing their kids cell phones, and they want them. I mean, they're like, please give me the phone. I want to play with an app and a game. And I mean, we would have too had we been that age. But I still think there's something blocking when you don't get to play with your hands and physically get into the headspace of something you're making.
It's the difference of having everything just shown to you and forced at you, and you're passive rather than active, and you're creating things with your mind in real time.
Yeah,
and making them come to life.
I don't know. Of course, we're all biased because of our ages and our own upbringings, but I think we're better for it.
Oh, totally. No, we are way better for it. There's no bias there.
Well, can't you tell how well adjusted the three of us are?
Yes.
Everybody?
Yeah, you guys have a title and I don't. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for doing this show. This, we all have lives, we all have families, and, sometimes just good to think about the times when you didn't have to worry about the mortgage. That's what your podcast does. That's why I love it. I'm happy to be on here contributing to the conversation.